Al's crazy about you.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, that helps.
There you go.
Oh, you're so sweet. Oh, that water's so cool. Maybe it is too much to introduce me as his mother on the first visit. Could you tell them I was a relative who dropped in? Val's uncle, Uncle Al.
Oh, what's the point? To be Val's gay Uncle Al.
Oh, I could play it straight.
Oh, please, look at you. Look at the way you're holding your glass. Look at your pinky. Look at your posture.
What? What about you? You're obviously not a cultural whatever it is. You've never been to a museum and you eat like a pig.
Albert, these people are right-wing conservatives. They don't... Of course you can pass as an uncle. You're a great performer. I'm a great director. Together we can do almost anything.
Oh, Armand, really?
Absolutely.
Oh.
We've got 5 hours. All right, first, get your pinky down. It's up again. All right, and your posture.
Oh, my God! Are you crazy? What are you doing?
Stop screaming. I'm teaching you to act like a man. All right. All right. Now, this is a dinner party. Let's work with food. All right? Spread some mustard on the toast. Don't use the spoon, and don't dribble little dots of mustard.
No?
No. You take your knife, and you smear. Men smear.
Smear.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get pinky down. All right, make your fingers like iron, all right? Yeah, and stop trembling. Hold the knife boldly and with strength.
No, I pierced the toast.
So what? The important thing to remember is not to go to pieces.
Hello and welcome to Book versus Movie. This is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies, and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of coloniabook.com, and this is my good friend and co-host, Margot D. of Brooklyn Fit Chick.
Hi, everyone.
Hello from our state capital, Sacramento. I don't know what their like little motto is. Like San Diego is always like America's finest city, which is a long story, but yeah, Sacramento, I don't know, it's the capital. But we were just saying before we got on the air how much fun we have had preparing for this week's episode. I cannot wait to talk about this week's episode. For those of you who are new, we do musicals in March, not always based on an actual book, like in the traditional sense of a novel or a biography, but in the theatrical sense of a script. When the pandemic started, we decided to do a brand new episode every single week. And that means that sometimes we need ideas. And it also means that we are doing shorter literary sources. So any adaptation that's been taken from a literary source, it could be a magazine article, a song, a poem, we will consider it. And we would love to hear your suggestions in a couple of different places where you can find us on the internet. You can meet other listeners of this podcast. We have a really great time.
We do. So be sure to like our basic Facebook page. All the episodes are posted there, but we're much more interactive in our Facebook group. And that's where we look for suggestions. We just talk about books and movies there and movie stars and past episodes and ideas for shows. And as Margot said, it could be literary source, could be just about anything. It just needs to be something we can get our actual hands on in some way. And also the movie needs to be streaming someplace on a major app. We also
so everybody has to be able to find it.
Exactly. So that's a private Facebook group. You just type in Book vs. Movie Podcast Group and ask to join. We're on Twitter and Instagram, Book versus Movie, just spelled it all out. And we have an old timey email, Book versus Movie Podcast, spelled it all out at gmail.com.
And if you really enjoy the show, would like to help keep us in books and movies, you can also support us on Patreon.
Patreon. That is where we post all of it. We've been doing the show for 9 years. So we have about 136, 137 episodes in our basic feed that we have going right now. And we've decided just everything 2 years previous to that goes on the Patreon wall. Lots of great shows are there. And it's just to help us with the books and the movies and the software and all that stuff. So we really appreciate all of you that do that for us. It really makes our lives easier. Thank you.
Well, our national news, we have a lot of people who listen internationally. Our national news has really impacted our selection of movies this March for musicals in March. I feel like we have to keep bringing it up because people will be like, why are these? What's the common theme between all these musicals? Because they do have a little common theme, and that is they can no longer be performed in the state of Tennessee. Last time we talked about, which was so much fun, we talked about Hairspray. And before that, we talked about, what was the first one?
Hedwig.
Oh, Hedwig. And today we're talking about, okay, we're doing it a little bit different. We're going to talk about a non-musical movie. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, I want to make sure I got this right. It's a non-musical movie based on a Broadway musical, based on a French film, based on a French play, based on an English film, based on an English play. Did I forget any of the pieces?
No, I'm actually really impressed that you got that all together.
We are talking about the Birdcage, aka La Cage aux Folles. I cannot wait. All week long, I've been going, I am what I am. That song is like burned in my head, and I am not mad about it.
No, same. It might be my new motto. That and wig in a box. Like I just.
Oh, that's another good one. So, yeah, maybe you didn't know like the very long history of that. Maybe you've only seen The Birdcage, which is great. It's a great film. We will talk about it. I don't mean, where do we begin? Should we start? I guess we should start with The Staircase.
Yeah, you actually saw the movie, so you can give more of a...
see the movie.
Yeah.
So the movie Staircase. So Staircase it's a 2-man show by playwright Charles Dyer. It's very good, actually. So it's about it's a couple. It's a gay couple. This is the 1960s. So post-war England. You get the sense that they have been together for a very, very, very long time. They are, I would say, older than middle-aged. Did you ever see the show Vicious?
It sounds familiar.
It's with Derek Jacobi and Sir Ian McKellen. Actually, they're both sirs. Sir Derek Jacobi and Sir Ian McKellen. And they're an older gay couple, and they're like really snipey with each other.
Oh,
They're vicious. It's hilarious. So that was also inspired by Staircase. Now, the plot line is thus. You have this they've been together for a super long time. They're very cutting with each other, but they also really care about each other. They're both hairdressers. They run a barbershop. One of them is also like an actor / model. So he's in like TV commercials and stuff. And he has a daughter. I think he was married. I think he was actually married, and he has a daughter who he's never met, who is 20, who is coming to visit them. Very similar to if you know the Birdcage, he's asking his husband to kind of vamoose when the daughter shows up because he thinks that she won't approve. They also care for the husband. So not the model guy, the husband who he asked to leave. They also look after his elderly mother. She lives with them too. But here's the thing is that while all of this is going on, the main character whose daughter is coming, who's the model actor, he is awaiting a court order at any moment to be tried for homosexuality, which was still against the law. So I'm not really clear about something has happened. We're not really clear what it is that has happened that he is now absolutely positive that he is going to, which he is summoned to court at the end of the play. That play was made into a movie starring Rex Harrison as the actor, model, father of the young woman, and Richard Burton as the spouse. I read somewhere that Rex Harrison hated the film. He hated being in it. But we know a little bit about Rex Harrison.
Yes.
Like he likes his reputation as a ladies' man, I think, a little too much.
Yeah.
I can't say he's bad in it. He's very good. And Richard Burton, though, in particular, is excellent in it, I think. He's really super good in it. He's the spouse that really kind of keeps everything running. It's his mother that they're looking after. So he looks after his mother. He looks after his husband. It's his business, the barber shop that they run. So he really takes care of everybody. And so for Rex Harrison to ask him to could you leave while my daughter shows up is very hurtful. I'll just tell you how it ends. You can find it. I'll put the link in the Facebook page because I found it for free. I found it for free on YouTube with Spanish subtitles.
Okay.
Okay. at the end, Rex Harrison's character is going off to his court date, and he's in the street, and he like freezes in the street. And they live in this neighborhood. They've lived in this neighborhood for decades. Everybody knows who they are and that they're a couple. And, you know, and it's not really clear, like I said, why he's being tried. But anyway, he's walking off to court, and he basically like, I don't need you. And he goes off and he freezes in the street, and he from the street calls for his husband, who comes running down.
Aww.
And the two of them go arm in arm off to the court date. So you don't know what becomes of them, but it's good. I think it's bleak.
Yes,
I'm going to say,
bleak, yeah.
It is, but I can't say that it's bad. I think it's really quite good. So the playwrights, the French playwright Poiret, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Jean Poiret.
He and someone he worked with saw this play and were very intrigued by the idea of doing a work about a gay couple who had been together for many, many years. He wrote La Cage aux Folles, otherwise known as the Birdcage. Some of the plot points are the same. You have this couple that have been together for a super long time. This couple that we have in La Cage aux Folles, though, are not snipey. They're much more caring towards each other. The main characters are named Renato, club owner, and Albin, Albin, is his spouse, partner, who is the drag performer, Zaza. Zaza, the star of La Cage aux Folles. It's wonderful, I think.
It is. So Jean Poiret, he was a comedian, and they did skits and variety shows, and he was very popular in France. And he and his writing partner were both straight men, saw the movie, and they thought, what if somebody took this but made it joyous? I guess because you're saying it's bleak. Like, why don't we?
It is. Yeah, it is. But there is a real relationship there that you really buy.
Right, yeah. Right. So he takes the two characters and he moves them to Saint-Tropez, and then there's this whole drag aspect. So one of them is a drag performer, and the other one that runs the nightclub, and one of them is more the straight guy, so to speak, and then the other one is the flamboyant one, and they have this in the original production. Sorry, it gets very confusing because they have all these different. I mean, this ran in Paris, and it was in French and Italian. Laurent has has a son who wants to get married, and he brings his fiance's family to the house. And then he has to send off his lover, and then bring the mother. And they raise the son for 20 years, kicks out the mother he knew, which is a man. And then they bring in this other woman, and he has a problem with her. She can't show up, but she bows out at the last minute. Because she's always been somebody that they couldn't really count on. She was always like a flibberty gibbet. So anyway, they meet this ultra conservative family, and so the one that's in drag dresses up as a woman, and they play man and wife, and then at the end it is revealed that they're actually two men. It was a big hit, and it ran for almost like 2,000 performances. It was very, very popular, and this was in 1973, and it was controversial because they took the material and they made it so fun and upbeat and made them more.
Yeah, but what they kept was so interesting. I mean, just the plot in itself is very interesting. Because this was a thing that happened all the time. I mean, I know gay men who had wives and kids with wives, and that's just how things were then. So you have that they've been together a long time. You have that in both cases, this couple have played an active role in their community for many, many, many years. Everybody knows them. Everybody accepts them. I mean, and that's where you get that in the staircase too. That's why it's so unclear. Like, why is anybody bothering with this? Well,
it's the 1 week story link, I think. It's the one they have. But anyway, yeah.
But the fact that they're part of this very colorful community of entertainers and artists and wealthy people. And then you have, instead of a daughter, you have a son, which I think is a neat angle too, that it's it's now 3 men, makes it an interesting dynamic. But the backdrop, I mean, the backdrop.
Saint-Tropez is amazing. Also, the title, so it becomes La Cage aux Folles, which means the cage of, it's like Cage of Mad Women. It's Cage of like crazy women. It's a put down, and it's also used as a gay slur at the time. Between 67 and 73, a lot of things change in the world, all over the world, and it becomes a very different environment. So they moved, this is 1973. It does really well. One of the people that go see the show is a man named Alan Carr, which, boy, we will talk about him when we're getting to the Broadway production. But he saw it in French, didn't speak a word of French, but he said, I could totally figure out what was going on. And he was a gay man, a very flamboyant man. So he connected with the material. And so the play does very, very well. And then there's a talk about like selling the rights and making an American version. But a lot of American studios are like, we're going to have 2 gay men? I don't know.
Yeah, it was not the right time. And also, there's a weird thing that happens, like the way that the rights are purchased. Right.
Yeah. So they make this movie, and the movie is tremendously successful. Playwright actually would played the part on stage, but he didn't play it in the movie. He decided to jazz up the character, so they have an Italian actor actually playing the part in the movie. The guy who played him on stage, there's actually somebody
fantastic.
else, and he's wonderful.
This couple is wonderful, and you totally buy them as a couple.
You totally do. And it's and if you see La Cage aux Folles, I only could see it like it's English dubbed. I wanted to find one that was French, but anyway.
I found it with subtitles.
I didn't. I'll try again. Amazon didn't have it because I wanted to practice my French. But they show this. It's a beautiful nightclub, and it's a beautiful shot. They go right into Saint-Tropez. It's sunny. It's beautiful. It's warm, and we have. It's the same thing. Like they're one of them's very flamboyant, and one of them's all business. They have a son, Valjean type Val. But it's like Valjean or something. But he's 20 years old and he wants to get married to his college girlfriend. And he's super, super straight, super, had a lot of girlfriends before. Like they make a point of bringing it up, but he's really in love with this girl. But her family's super conservative and they're politicians. And so they say, okay, the son asks, please, I don't ask anything of you. I just, can we just kind of de-gay the house and send your mother essentially off, and then we'll bring in this other woman, the birth mother, have her come in. And they've never had a relationship, and they haven't spoken. And so the comedy comes in with this conservative family, and that's a politician that's going through a scandal.
Yeah. If you love the Birdcage, like all of the main things that are so funny about the Birdcage are in this play.
Yes.
/ movie. The changing of the decor to be like gothic, so severe and like minimalist. The mom is a little different in this version in that, like in the Birdcage, she's a much nicer. She just like, oh, I just really didn't want to be a mom. But in the earlier versions of the Broadway show and in this original the French version, the son kept wanting to have a relationship with the mom, and the mom kept disappointing him. Would say she was coming and she wouldn't come.
Right.
Would kind of blow him off. And so he asks her for this one big favor, and she's like, sure, I'll be there. And then she's like, oh, you know what? I had something fun come up, so I won't be coming.
So they have to come up and so they have to de-gay the apartment, and they have, and everything. There's like a penis statue, and there's the dishware that has. It's the set is so awesome. It's awesome.
It's such a great set.
And there's a lot of the same beats in that the son is asking for this tremendous favor of his family, and it's a big deal. Once again, this is 1978, by the way. I forgot to say that. This is a French film financed over there. It did really well. They sent it to and in the end, it's the same ending. The kids are going to be together. They develop a relationship, a companionship. The parents and get along and all that stuff. They put on a big show and they have to sneak out by dressing in drag, and that's how they escape. And that's like the big thing in the movie. Like they dress out in drag, and so. there were no movies like this in 1979 in America. So they sent it to America and it did very, very well in France. So they put it in art houses around the country. The critics loved it, but it was one of the things, like, you had to drive if you didn't live in a city, you had to go a distance.
You weren't going to see it at the AMC. No.
If you're a gay kid in the middle America, where were we going to catch this? So funnily enough, this movie does very well. And then Jean didn't care. Jean was precious about, they wanted making an American version, and he wanted it done a particular way, and he couldn't find somebody to do it. So then Alan Carr's like, well, what if I make a musical? Can I buy a musical off your property? And Jean Poirot said, yeah, I don't care. Go ahead. So Alan...
Like, yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Aren't you adorable?
Basically.
Alan Carr gets a big list of people. Harvey Fierstein is one of them who saw the movie and didn't like it.
Who had just done Torch Song Trilogy.
Right.
I mean, he was super, super hot. He's in his 20s at this time.
Very handsome.
He's brilliant. We've got Herman.
Jerry Herman. Well, we had originally they had Mike Nichols and someone else. And it turned into everybody wanted the most amount of money. Everyone, and it was like at the time in Broadway, we've talked about this. So it's the early 80s. Let's go to now 80, 81. Cats comes around, Chorus Line. There's huge.
Broadway was getting very, very big again.
Right.
Yeah.
People were going to New York just to go to musicals, just to see this stuff. It was a big business, but you could also lose a lot of money. So it's always a big risk. And these things take forever to workshop. And in the end, just to kind of move it along, Mike Nichols gets kicked out. Alan Carr, and he had Grease, by the way, which was a huge movie. He also did Can't Stop the Music by the Village People. So he's had his ups and downs, but he got the rights to this musical. And so he gets Jerry Herman on board. And Jerry Herman was somebody who did like Hello Dolly and Mame. Very old school, not of this new, not a Sondheim.
Not drag queens.
No drag queens, no Sondheim, no, Tommy Tune running all over the place. It was Jerry Herman was pretty. But the thing with Jerry Herman is he had an ear, obviously, for music, but he loved this original story and had written songs for it in preparation that somebody would ask him to do it. So they literally just had these songs like, okay, so this is the end of Act 1, and this is the couple song, and this is the son song, and they had all that. And it's great
wonderful music.
Oh my goodness.
It's beautiful music.
And so they had Harvey Fierstein wrote the script, and he was still young. I mean,
he's in his 20s. He's like 28, I think.
He's very young. And then David Lawrence is the director.
Arthur Lawrence.
David Lawrence out there. I'm sorry, I don't mean you, whoever you are, sir. But Arthur Lawrence. So they had these Alan Carr, Arthur Lawrence, Jerry Herman, Harvey Fierstein, and so you have like three gay men that are very active that want to get the message out there. Harvey Fierstein's like, we need drag queens. We need this kind of decor. We need this. We need this. And Arthur Lawrence is, we need to sell this. I want straight people to come to the theater. So there's all this stuff that they have to do to get through. So they do this big testing, and the cast, George
Hearn plays Alban.
Yes.
So the characters are pretty much the same. And
Gene Barry, that's what I was thinking of.
The name of plays George that plays.
Oh, it's Gene Barry. Gene Barry. We talked about because he's in the original War of the Worlds. and then he was in the remake that we covered on this show a couple of years ago. But he did Westerns, and he was he was a heterosexual man, had a great singing voice. So they had him and George Hearn, who were two straight men, doing the part. It lands, and they write all these songs, and they have these gorgeous sets. And there's a couple of videos I got of smacking.
It really is. So one of the things that one of the consistent things is that opening shot. If you see the original movie, the La Cage aux Folles, the opening shot of Saint-Tropez as the camera like zooms in and comes to on Broadway, they created a similar effect on the stage with things opening to reveal and opening to reveal and opening to reveal until you're in the amazing nightclub that is La Cage aux Folles. You, the audience, are you're the audience at La Cage aux Folles, and you're seeing this amazing show. music you will remember for the rest of your life.
That'll stick in your head.
Great
And the
story.
And costumes that are beautiful.
Oh, the costumes were gorgeous.
And so they had men and women, dancers, and they trained them to do drag, basically, and the hair and the makeup. And so that's how they opened the show. Tried it out, and the set wasn't working. It was all those things you hear about, these nightmares of putting a show together. And then they go to Boston to try it out.
Lovely Catholic Boston.
Exactly, which is, what's it called? The Boston Principle? Or there's something Boston about, like, it's such a Catholic place that when they have a problem with a movie or whatever, like, you have to, okay. So they're terrified. That's the only place. They had to go to Boston. And the people fell in love with it because they fell in love with the characters. George and Armand. Albin, excuse me.
It's such a touching story. You cannot help but, and it's written so well. It's written very, very well. You cannot help but you're instantly rooting for this. Yeah. Because they've been going for so long against such odds, and you're watching this. I can't even imagine watching this in a first Reagan administration era Broadway audience, what that must have been like. This is before the AIDS epidemic has really exploded. Yeah, but it is during that. I'm going to try to watch myself. It's during the rise of that kind of Reagan era conservatism. Let's go back to the 50s, which then evolves into the whole family values and Newt Gingrich and all of that. But meanwhile, on Broadway, they are loving La Cage aux Folles.
All right, Alban, I shall try to explain it all. Now, you know that the girl's parents are coming to visit. And I told you that Sybil, the boy's mother, is coming. What I failed to tell you is that you're not. Alban, the girl's father, is that politician wants to impose his morality on all of us, and there's nothing to be done. They are who they are, and they're on their way here, and so for one night, I shall be somebody else for them. I mean, when you think about it, it's very funny. Me playing a diplomat with the French Foreign Service. Sybil pretending to be my wife. You. Well, believe me, it's one of those stories we'll laugh about for the rest of our lives. So what do you say?
Excuse me. I have a show to finish.
We are, and what we are is an illusion. We love how it feels, putting on heels, causing confusion. Face life, though it's sometimes sweet and sometimes bitter. Face life with a little guts and lots of glitter.
No! I am what I am. I am my own special creation. So, come take a look. Give me the hook or the ovation. It's my world.
Yeah, they're loving the hell out of it. It's a huge success. They go back to New York. It does incredibly well. I mean, there's also, we have on our group the Tony Awards, thank God. They recorded all their shows so that we have these performances, and it's spectacular. And you just have no soul if you're just not moved by I Am What I Am when you see that live. And they're just, they make money. They make so much money that's super, super, super popular. It's then put out again in 87 and in 2004. Kelsey Grammer did a very popular version here 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, it's a popular show. People love it. So you think, this is easy. Let's make a movie out of it. But it was very hard to get the musical rights to make the movie. So then they only had the rights to the original play. So they decided to do a non-musical version. So there is music in this movie we're going to talk about, but it's Stephen Sondheim that we have. They have some extra Sondheim.
Some hack named Stephen Sondheim.
My goodness. So why don't we...
This movie.
It's so good.
Oh, boy.
Okay, let's take a quick break, and then we'll play the trailer, and then we'll talk about the Birdcage. I've got a really interesting podcast recommendation for you listeners today. Pretty Much Pop. It's a culture podcast talking about TV, movies, music, games, podcasts, novels, comedy, theater, and exploring why and how we consume these things. How does pop culture even work in a world that's so fragmented and connected? Where's the line between trash and treasure? Pretty Much Pop brings together philosophers, artists, comedians, and other smart folks to attempt to ponder these questions. Most of what people like is pretty weird when you think about it. So thinking about it is what Pretty Much Pop does. Find Pretty Much Pop, a culture podcast, wherever you listen to your favorite kinds of podcasts.
Pop, I'm getting married. It's a girl. I met her at school. It's this wonderful... Are you upset?
But let me tell you why.
Don't use that tone to me.
What tone?
That sarcastic, contemptuous tone that means you know everything because you're a man and I know nothing because I'm a woman.
You're not a woman.
Oh, you bastard.
Are you crazy? You can't get married. It's out of the question.
We've been sleeping together for a year.
Oh, God. Has he been tested?
Oh, Kevin. Yes, and so have I. Who's his father? His father is in the arts.
You do an eclectic celebration of the dance. You do Fosse, Fosse, Fosse. You do Martha Graham, Martha Graham, Martha Graham. Or Madonna, Madonna, Madonna. But you keep it all inside.
What does the mother do? She's a housewife.
Oh, I could play it straight.
You take your knife and you smear. Men smear. Smear, that's it. Yeah. Get the pinky down. All right, hold the knife boldly and with strength.
I'm gonna like pierce the toast.
Al, you old so-and-so. How do you feel about that call today? I mean, the Dolphins, 4th and 3 play on their 30-yard line with only 34 seconds to go.
How do you think I feel? Betrayed, bewildered?
Call me.
Perfect. Won't you come in?
Senator Keeley, Mrs. Keeley, come here and give me a hug.
I've never felt such tension. It's like riding a psychotic horse towards a burning stable. God, it's a nightmare.
Get up, everybody, and sing.
It's something about the father and Mrs. Cole. I can't put my finger on it.
It's nothing.
What do you mean?
It's nothing.
It is
Dad,
something.
It is nothing.
We are family.
Something very strange is going on.
Everybody and sing. We are family.
I forgot to mention, Margot, when we talked about Mike Nichols earlier. So Mike Nichols was attached to direct the Birdcage in like 81, 82, and then it fell apart. And he was not going, his career was not doing well at the time. He really, really wanted to do La Cage.
Yeah, he was kind of in a slump, and I think he recognized early on what a great story this is, and kind of I'm sure he knew what he could do with it, and was not happy about being booted.
No, he didn't take it well. He was a very sensitive person. I mean, I think he came across as super confident. He partnered with a person in the early 60s, some hack named Elaine May. So
perhaps you've heard of her.
Perhaps. This is, these are brilliant.
This movie.
People. I mean, the talent in this film.
It's like a Mount Rushmore of movies. Everybody is in this movie.
On top of that, we also need to mention, because this is also happening. So this is 1996, this movie. In the mid-90s, MGM UA was not doing very well. They had a string of really bad movies. They hired someone, and then turns out he committed fraud and was buying gifts for his girlfriends where he's supposed to be buying scripts.
I forgot about that.
Yes.
That's right.
They had a scandal.
Oh,
and
yeah.
MGM was created by artists in the 1920s, like Mary Pickford and Charlie Chaplin. When MGM and United Artists combined, they started selling off a lot of their properties because they were just bleeding money. The French bank bought the place and said, we're just going to spruce this up so we can sell it. So they put a studio executive in charge, and they say, whatever you think can make money, just make money. And any other studio would not touch this because, believe it or not, 1996, you couldn't say gay. And
okay. So
again.
now, now we're in the Clinton era with Don't Ask, Don't Tell. We are the AIDS epidemic has exploded and gone down to a simmer. It's still going on now. So, some things we're a little more progressive on, but yeah, this was, I can see why they thought this was don't touch it with the 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
Kind of story.
UA had, from their early days, they had James Bond. So they had a James Bond film, one of those 90s James Bond films come out. And then they had this movie. Long story, they get Mike Nichols and Elaine May together. Now, they were a comedy duo from Chicago. They met in Chicago. It's one of those things. They come to New York, they play the clubs, and then like a couple of weeks later, they're on TV, and then they're on Broadway, and their stuff sells out for like a year.
They're brilliant. They're just genius. Absolute magic.
Funny. There's so much, because they did so many records that did really well, and so people were passing these records around. And then they made some films together, and then they went off to do their own things. And he did plays and movies, and we've talked about Mike Nichols before, and there's a great biography about him from Mark Harris. Anyway, Mike Nichols gets the project, and he says to Elaine May, can you update this? She's like, yeah, who do we get? And they immediately get Gene Hackman and Diane Weiss. They were hired first. And I mean... it's like a murderer's row of like talent here. And then
Gene Hackman as the conservative politician.
And dumb. Playing very dumb, which he's never done before.
Very dumb, but so sure of himself.
Right.
Toxic masculinity in a suit. Ugh.
And Diane Weiss plays his wife. And then they said, well, who do we get for the couple? And he wanted to get Robin Williams and Steve Martin, because they were on Broadway doing
Godot, right?
Right, they were doing Godot. So Steve Martin said, nah, I don't want to play Armand. I want to do something else. He does Sergeant Bilko. We all know about Sergeant Bilko, don't we?
The comedy classic.
So Robin Williams was originally going to play the flamboyant part. And then when Steve Martin was out, he's like, you know what I want to play Armand. I don't want to do, because he'd just done Mrs. Doubtfire. So he was like, I already done drag. I want to try something different. And so then they find Nathan Lane, who's a big star on Broadway and is doing really well, but he's never done a major motion picture. This is a starring part.
Yeah. He was most people knew him as the little meerkat thing in The Lion King.
Exactly.
Oh no, or was he the other one?
He was one of the Hakuna Matata. I know he's saying that.
He's one of the Hakuna Matata guys. Yeah.
Hire those two. I mean, the cinematographer is Emmanuel Lubezki, who goes on to win 3 Oscars in a row. The opening
cinematography in this film is spectacular.
So we'll say this.
The opening shot. Okay, I just want to say, I remember seeing the trailer for this film in the movie theater and like, when is it coming out? Can I line up now?
Yes.
I could not wait to see. I don't even know how many times I saw this movie in the movie theater. If you have a chance to see it on the big screen because of the cinematography, it's so good. It's so good.
I worked at a place in 95 to 97. It was called DK Publishing. They're still around, Dorling Kindersley. And we did a book about the ultimate spy book. I became friends with the MGM person because they did the James Bond movie. Maybe GoldenEye? I don't know. So she put me on their press list for movies. So I got to go to a screening of this like a week or two before it came out. like with 1,000 people. It was one of those kind of screenings. The audience loved it from like the very first frame.
You can't not. You can't not.
Gorgeous.
It's Stephen Sondheim. It's Mike Nichols. It's Elaine May. It's Robin Williams. It's Nathan Lane. What do you want? If you don't like, you just don't like movies.
You're allergic to joy. That's what I've learned to say.
Exactly.
You are allergic to joy.
What is this dream I see? Why does it seem so real to me? What if this dream turns out to be more than a dream? Fairy dust, fairy dust, fairy dust. Come, little dream and play. Don't be afraid, don't fade away. Quick, little dream, before you're gone. Let's get it on. I saw that. Well, this is impossible. Either I'm an artist or I'm just some cheap drag queen playing it straight so he can get laughs.
Let's just try and get through it.
Well, you always ask so much of me. I have to understand every nuance of a song. I have to give a full-out performance, but everyone else can just get through it. I mean, he's chewing gum.
Chewing gum helps me think.
Sweetie, you're wasting your gum.
Let's take it from the bridge and no more talking from anyone.
I need to talk to you. Shh, sit down. It's important.
You are the dream, and I the dreamer, each night anew. Tell me, my dream, are you a dreamer too?
Can you come upstairs with me? I've got to do this. Please, not right now.
Armand, did you see what he just did? Hello, Valley, darling.
What did he do?
He blew a bubble with his gum while I was singing. He can't do that while I'm singing!
Celsius, look, this may be a drag show, but it still has to be a good drag show. If possible, a great drag show.
Yes, and just because you're 22 and hung doesn't mean you're...
Let me do this, Albert.
Fine, you're the director.
Thank you. This is a complex number full of mythic themes. The woman who is singing invented you. You are her fantasy. And suddenly, you, the fantasy, see her, your inventor, and she becomes your fantasy.
I don't think I get it.
Try more gum.
Albert.
I hear you.
Thank you, I know you do.
I mean, there's stuff to talk about here, and we will talk about it. But Albert, so now we have, I'm sorry we get confused with the names, because they literally change the names every single time. But they moved the action to Miami.
So he's not George, he's Armand.
Armand Goldman.
Yes. And which is great. Nice touch, Elaine May. Alban is now Albert. Which is great.
And he plays, and it's the character is Zaza, excuse me, in the show. Now her name is Starina. Which I love. I love. And it's, Miami in the 90s with those.
Miami in the 90s. Well, I mean, sadly, most of us know Miami in the 90s from the Versace mini series. But I mean, Miami was such a hot place.
It still is.
Colors and music and man.
It's this amazing amalgam of people.
So good.
And they catch that. These beautiful, and I love like every shot is like beautiful tan bodies and really small swimsuits.
Everybody's gorgeous.
Everyone's beautiful.
It's a beautiful day every day. It's a beautiful night every night.
It's just spectacular. So they changed the beats here a bit. Nathan Lane thinks that Robin Williams is cheating on him, and we forgot to mention Hank Azaria plays Spartacus Agador Spartacus. I always. But he's convinced, and he's very dramatic. Like, I know you're going to leave me. And there's a lot, like, I watched it this time because I saw it the first time when it came out. Like, I respond more because I'm more their age now. I am their age now.
Yeah, same.
That's like, I'm like, oh, just like to spend 20 years with, because you've been married for 20 years. But all that goes in with that. But it's so funny. Nathan Lane's like, oh, you're leaving me for someone else, someone younger and prettier. And he has to talk him down. Like, no, I love you. And then Val shows up.
We should just say, like the son in the story, not in the staircase. I'm going to say in the staircase, it's a different scenario. But in the Cage aux Folles and in the Broadway musical, and in this for the son, like it's a story about two wonderful human beings who are in love for many years, who raise a selfish jerk. Somehow they raise a selfish, just completely heartless.
It's very odd because from the beginning, it's a weird beat because they play it like you don't know if they're lovers. Like he shows up to see his father.
Yeah, they sort of mislead you. I guess maybe taking advantage of the fact that so many Americans were unfamiliar with La Cage aux Folles and didn't know the plot of the story.
They didn't get it, but so that's where we vow. And there's lots of it. And Dan Futterman is a very successful writer and producer, and it's not his fault. But boy, they don't do him any favors in here. So he's playing 20, which
okay,
yeah, all right, movie. He's 20 whole years old, and he wants to get married. Which, you know, my parents were that young when they got married. I'm not, but Callista Flockhart is his girlfriend. And the proper response is congratulations. When you graduate, you know, you both do whatever you want with your lives. What's the rush?
Maybe
She's
wait
not
till
pregnant.
you're old enough to drink. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe get your degrees. Maybe because they're meeting in college. Like but no, like he's like, I met her. I love her and I want to marry her. And he's at first like, well, you're young, but it's your life. And then he says, and he's a conservative Republican senator from Ohio, and he hates gay people, and and they're very conservative, and they're very religious, and they will not approve of you. So you need to send Albert out.
You need to change.
Who raised me? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The person who treated me like a son, who adores the ground I walk on, who has never been anything but kind. Not only that, but then they're also anti-Semitic on top of it. So you got to pretend to not be Jewish. And Robin Williams angry, like Julia Roberts and Robin Williams, when they're angry, I love it. It's so
same.
Yes. I'm just so
it's wonderful.
It's a thing. And he's just like, no, you brat. Like, this is ridiculous. So he gets manipulated into it by his son. It's like, oh, and in the play, he at least puts up a fight like, do you know, I had a mother that didn't pay attention to me, and I had kids make fun of me at school, and it was very hard, and at least a little emotional manipulation. Val walks in just like, no, I just want it. So throw him out. Smoking cigarettes and chugging scotch. And
yeah. Oh, he'll be fine.
What?
And that's how it is. Yeah. He's such a jerk. He's such a jerk. And by the way, Callista Flockhart, what are you doing marrying a guy who's going to ask it? Like, really? That's who you want to start a family with? Okay.
Based on a huge lie.
Red flags.
Red flags. A flag on the play. Yes. But this is a movie, and it's a comedy. And so Robin Williams then has to explain to him, like, we can't. There's a whole scene where he's so heartbroken, and I feel so bad for him because he's being sent out. Just like, he's like, fine, I'll leave. I'll go right now. I won't even pack my bags. And then they try to figure out, they go out to lunch, and he says, maybe I can learn to be straight. I'm a performer. You're a performer.
Yeah, I could just be the uncle.
Yeah, I'll be the uncle.
Which is in the original play.
Exactly.
This whole bit is in the original play. And it's great in every version.
And then they do the thing where, first he's trying to teach him with the toast. And in all the versions, Albert is just hopeless. Like, he's very skittish. He can't handle smearing mustard. He can't handle stabbing toast. They do the thing where you walk like John Wayne. And that's in all the different versions, by the way. And it turns out it's pretty hopeless. I also forgot to mention one of my favorite scenes is when he's rehearsing one of the Sondheim songs, and he has the dancer that's like this gorgeous young dancer that's just chewing gum.
And that's in the original.
Yes.
In the original material too. It's so good. It is such an awesome story. It's so good.
It's
like
great.
It holds up to all these different interpretations of it, you know? Oh, man.
So in this version, we just are, it's tough because we get Christine Baranski of it all shows up, and I love her. She's who would
she's Christine Baranski,
right? She can
What's
do everything.
not to love,
right?
Yeah. So I like that she's not evil, and I like that she, unlike in the other versions, that she's not like, you know what? I think I'd rather go to brunch with this guy instead of be there for my son. She's really trying to be there for him and trying to do him a solid.
And she's also like, I like that when she goes, I'm not very maternal, as she pops open the champagne between her legs. But she's saying, like, I wasn't very maternal, and it was probably better, less confusing for me to be. But she's like, and they're doing a Sondheim song, and they're dancing in the little, because Sondheim had a few extra songs like from Hollies or whatever.
Just like under his coffee cup.
Yeah. Whatever. So they do that. And so the whole thing is that and also this is very dated or not dated, but I'd say dated. It's the whole scandal is that there's a Republican senator that dies. It's with an African-American child, let's say, because they keep saying she's a teenager, she's a girl. Like, it's really bad. But it's like it's the scandal of like, oh, it's a black girl that he's caught with. So we have to.
Yeah. And the father of Calista Flockhart's father is like this guy's closest associate and supporter, the Lindsey Graham to his former president, if you will.
If you know. So he and Diane Wiest are like, we got to get out of here. And their daughter wants to get married to some guy. She goes, well, why don't we go and meet the parents? But we got to sneak out of the house because the press is everywhere because they're all over this scandal.
I like that angle on it. That's not something, that urgency about the press hounding them is not something that's in the other stuff. And that again, the Lane May. I like that it does add to the tension of it.
It does. So they get out of the house. So they drive from Ohio to Miami, and in the meantime they're trying to de-gay the house, and Spartacus Agador is going to be there. In the movie it was always an African-American guy that played their maid / butler, and here we have an Ecuadorian, so that's Hank Azaria. I'm pretty sure it's not Ecuadorian, but
I think he is. No, let me look. There's something there. I think he is Latino in there somewhere. Let me check. Okay. I will look it up.
Okay. So he plays Spartacus Attacker, and he's so hilarious. He can't wear shoes because they make him trip on his feet. They're trying to prepare a meal for them. In the meantime, Christine Baranski is driving to the house, so she's going to play the mother so they can put this all over on this couple. And as soon as this couple shows up, it feels the tension is already there. You know, the name Coleman and Goldman.
Yeah, so his grandparents on both sides were Sephardic Jews. And they spoke a language called Ladino with a D, also known as Judeo-Spanish, which is described as a strange, antiquated Spanish dialect written in Hebrew characters.
Interesting. So we're all keyed up, and it's like at the 1 hour point, right? And this is when, so the Diane Wiest and Gene Hackman, they're trying to make conversation with Robin Williams and Val, and there's all this tension, and Christine Baranski's not showing up, and sweet Albert tried to dress straight. You know, he's trying to sit in a chair and act straight in his suit and everything, and they realize she's not going to show up, and he doesn't want to screw up. So Albert decides to get in drag and go downstairs and meet the family and just pull it off that way. And it's one of the funniest things you'll see. It
is hilarious.
Something very odd is going on.
It's this thing with Jackson. The wife probably doesn't want to be in the same house with us, and the father is a nervous wreck.
I'm sure that's not it.
No, there's something else. It's something about the father and the butler. I can't put my finger on it.
It's nothing.
What do you mean?
It's nothing.
It is
Dad,
something.
it is nothing. You always think the worst.
I don't always think the worst.
You always think the worst. Val's mother is just a little late.
Listen to me, young lady.
Val's mother is just a little late.
You watch yourself, young lady.
May come.
Excuse me. Well, we'll
Let's give her half an hour, and then, if she isn't...
Here I am. Oh, please forgive me for being so late, but the traffic was unbelievable. Senator Keeley, Mrs. Keeley, I'm so happy to meet you at last. Oh, you must be Barbara. What a pretty child. Come here and give me a hug. Oh, don't be afraid. Oh, how adorable. She's shy.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you, Mrs. Coleman.
Goldman.
I thought the D was silent.
It is pronounced Coleman, isn't it? We've had some confusion.
Oh, yes, Coleman. The D is silent in America. It's Col d'Ilomont or Col of the Isle of Man in France, where Armand's chateau is, and Coldeman in Greece, where Armand's work is, and finally the vulgar Coleman in Florida, where Armand's home is. So actually, we don't know where we are until we hear our last name pronounced.
Oh, that explains it.
At last.
I think I would like to hug you, Mrs. Coleman.
Oh, my dear child. Oh, well.
It is comedy gold.
It's
in all the. I mean, this is the plot of the whole story throughout, and I like it every time. Every time when Albert shows up as the mom, because he is the mom. He's not acting. He's the mother. He is the mothering influence in this young man's life, and it's so good, and just the chemistry between all of them, the energy between Nathan Lane and Gene Hackman and Diane Weiss, everybody is just like snapping and crackling and popping all over the place in this crazy Gothic set.
Which they have a big crucifix on the wall, and the dishes they leapfrog, naked men leapfrogging, so they have to put the soup in there. I mean, there's just this, and Nathan Lane gets toasted, as they're drinking and talking, and there's not enough food to go around. They're bonding and they dance and they're really bonding, and then Christine Baranski actually shows up. But they're like,
I like that she's not, because it's a bummer in all the other versions when the mom just kind of blows it off.
Doesn't care. Yeah. Doesn't seem to care. So she shows up, but that's when the jig is up. They realize and so they have to explain. But this is where the brilliance of it is too, because there's reporters everywhere. They can't just walk out of a gay club because this guy is super right wing, family values. What are they going to do? And they bond a little bit just getting to know each other in a real way. And then there's this great scene, a shot where the show begins again. It's just the show starts and turns around. It's Gene Hackman in drag, who looks great, by the way.
He looks amazing. They all look great. They look terrific.
That's how they do it. I buy it. I would totally buy it. And they just get out and they dance their way past the Paps and everybody. Get in their car.
Sister Sledge.
Yes.
Everybody's feeling great.
And then we get this great...
What's better than that?
It's nothing. And then there's this wedding, and it's a Jewish wedding. Obviously, they have a rabbi. And then they have the Birdcage side, and then they have the other side. And I love it that one of the drag queens goes, "Oh, my God, Bob Dole is gorgeous." That cracks me up every single time.
Well, so what do we think? Of all of the versions,
I'm actually going to stick with the Birdcage because I've seen it the most.
Me too. Me too. Although, I love that musical. I just love that musical. I think it's so good. But Elaine May, mwah. I love that the things that she does that they so add to the story, and the cast. And the the whole thing. It's a perfect movie.
It got tons of nominations and wins for the art direction, for the acting, for the writing. The cinematography is it just makes Miami look beautiful and exotic. I just can't believe that this is America. It just looks that good. Yeah, I think it really just holds together. Same. It got a Screen Actors Guild Award for the actors, which this is a great cast.
Not enough. I'm sorry. Not enough. They should all have Oscars. They just They should get some every year for this movie. Now, let's talk about what we're doing next. This is a very exciting one that we're doing next.
We're going to be covering Kinky Boots, which I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
Me either, but I loved it.
I loved it. I saw the musical a couple of years ago before COVID. It was so much fun. I think it's Harvey Fierstein, by the way. I think he co-wrote it with Cyndi Lauper.
Oh, I think you're right.
Yeah. But they're both available. You could see both. They're easy to stream. Yeah, so we're in support of drag very much this month.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
You should be able to perform it anywhere you like. And we shouldn't ban art.
Yeah.
Because somebody is wearing clothing that you think belongs on a different gender. People should get to see Shakespeare and Hairspray and all that stuff.
There's nothing here I think a kid can't handle, for Pete's sakes. I mean...
Oh, no, especially Birdcage? Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
I don't even think there's any swearing in it.
No, Robin Williams maybe a couple of times, but that's about it.
Oh, maybe. Anyway.
And the musical looks
People should
great.
watch it.
You should watch it.
You should watch it.
And there's a few versions
awesome.
on YouTube.